Welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin. All right, so part two. Now, yesterday I talked about the first phase in my evolution to the watch enthusiast I am now, which is pretty much a Rolex centric person. Um, all right, well, I made a part two and a part three, but didn't really like them, so I'm gonna make those again, and I think I'm gonna combine them because part three I kind of talked about in another video. I'll briefly talk about it. Okay, so where was I? I was, um, under the impression that Rolex was off, what, like a second or two a year. That Rolex was Rolex because of the accuracy. Okay, and so for decades I was under that impression, and I never really was a watch guy. When I was younger, I had a bunch of Casios, and I remember having, when I was, how old was I? I was probably, I don't know, maybe 10, maybe younger. I got this Casio that it had a barometer and an altimeter. I guess I'm saying that correctly. Anyway, but when I chose the watch, I think somebody, maybe my mother or the guy selling it, said, "Oh, you can tell the weather with this watch." All right. Well, as a kid, you kind of think, all right, well, it's gonna, you're gonna look down and it's gonna tell you it's gonna rain in 5 minutes, and you're gonna, have these godly powers. But it doesn't really work like that. And really, I just couldn't get my head around how a barometer and altimeter works to, you know, understand low pressure, and low pressure changing to high pressure, and that indicating precipitation is coming. So it was just I was too young for it, basically, and so I think I had that. Two cats are fighting here, play fighting, and so I had that watch a while, and I think I ended up returning it just because I couldn't really get it to tell me when it was going to rain. All right, so and then I had some other Casios. I had an Iron Man, just these digital plastic watches, which I don't know. There's something kind of cool about just like a simple black plastic Casio. I mean, it's fashion wise, it's just an abomination, but it's just they're so simple, and I don't know. It takes me back to like a period of my youth when I thought Casios were really cool. So, but I wasn't a watch guy. In my early adult life, I never had a watch. I never knew what time it was. It was kind of weird. In retrospect, it's like, dude, get your shit together. Time is important. You should have a handle on it. But even before I had a cell phone, I was kind of like willingly ignorant about the time. It's kind of strange. These days, I guess maybe I'm getting older. My time is more valuable. I love having, the access to the time on my wrist. And um, for a long time, I was using a cell phone. I would have my cell phone in my pocket, and that worked well enough. Now I don't have the seconds on my phone, which I would totally miss. I could never go back to using my phone. And the idea of taking it out and looking at it versus this is just you. I don't know. You start wearing a watch and you just see how nice it is. And anyway, I'm all over the place. But part two, okay, phase two. So I was probably 32, 33, living in Japan. Um, Never had, again, never really had a watch, wasn't a watch person. I don't think even at the time I really understood mechanical watches. It's just, it was oblivious to that kind of thing, okay? And, it's strange. I wonder if at the time if you had mentioned, Rolex Submariner having say a battery. I wonder if I would have been like, oh, a Submariner battery, yeah, oh, okay. These days, of course, it would. I know better, but yeah, like I said, it must have been 32, 33, living in Japan, and I was hanging out with this girlfriend of sorts. She was quite a bit older than I was. I think she was like 40, and a little bit of Cougar action going on there. She was worked in um, a travel agency, and And she was a watch enthusiast, and she had swatches, and I think she had at least two Rolexes. And Rolex came up sometime, and I said, just thinking back to that event when I was like 5 or 6, about how accurate they were. I said, yeah, they're really accurate watches. They're really good. And she looked at me kind of strangely and said, yeah, they're really not that accurate. And I said, really? Explain. And she told me that they were, every day a little bit fast. I guess hers were fast, and every day off a few seconds. Man, and I couldn't believe it. I just didn't understand. I knew there were expensive watches, so I didn't really understand what the draw was. I mean, I thought that's what you were getting, the most accurate watch in the world. And then she told me about overhauls, about the servicing, and about how you have to have them serviced every 5 years. It costs $500. And wow, I mean, I remember thinking, why on earth do people buy these watches? Sounds like a terrible decision. Years later, I have a few. It's strange how we change our opinions. But I guess I just chalked it up to them being like a status symbol, and just people kind of wanting them to show off. And that's what I thought. So yeah, that was weird. I mean, I don't want to say I lost respect for the brand. I mean, I still thought they were beautiful watches, but I just didn't quite understand what the draw was. All right. And a couple years after that, I got this from what was to be my future and current wife. And this right here, I think, has to be probably one of the worst watches I've ever seen. Look, if you have a Steinhardt or a Seiko, look, all I got to do is look at this, and I think you made a good choice. Or did I say Seiko? Sorry. Squale, Steinhardt. Look, compared to this, yeah, any pretty much any watch is good. Now it's a chronograph. It's a quartz. You can see some footage right up here of it, and the brand. I'm sure you've never heard of it, and it's probably not in existence anymore. Musk, a cheesy logo with like the symbol for a man and a woman like interlocked. And the worst thing about this watch is that it's not a flyback chronograph, but as you can see, it's got the bezel markings of a flyback chronograph, but they're just like decoration. I mean, such a piece of shit. But this was a gift, right? From yeah, my wife back when she was my girlfriend, and so I got a leather strap, and now I've since poached the strap, and I wear it sometimes because it was a good leather strap, but I still have it. I pretty much well, I mean, I'm not going to use it. My daughter kind of plays with it sometimes, but yeah. So that was really my only sort of I guess interaction with watches. I got it. I wore it a little bit. I wore it like a few days. I guess it started bugging my wrists. I yeah. I guess I wasn't a watch person, and I don't know. It was a quartz, and I just hated the. It's funny. I mean, I don't know if I knew even at like 35 or so. Uh, like quartz versus mechanical, and the quartz having this staccato sort of second hand, but yeah, I felt like I just felt cheapness. I knew something was fishy because this bezel with the markings, it just didn't make any sense. Now I didn't at the time know what a flyback chronograph was. The quartz wouldn't ever quite hit the markings perfectly. I just smelled something rotten with this, and that's why I think I wore it for about a week, and I was like, yeah, this is not not something I want to wear. But again, I went back to checking out things on my phone, and that was basically I guess phase two, and I guess what in summary the phase two that I was conceptualizing was sort of this realization that Rolex was not that accurate after all. and how, well, I just, at the time I really couldn't understand why anybody would pay that kind of money, and the servicing, and it seemed crazy to me. And what happened? How did I get to part three? Well, I'll put that in another video. But who was the hero of the day? If you've watched my channel before, I think you might know. But stay tuned, and hope you are enjoying this kind of anecdotes from my life. Take care. See you next time.